It is another glorious day in the world of football. Why is that? Well, because we've got another game of football to bet on today. That's why. Monday Night Football, we've got the Raiders, we've got the Lions. We've got a lot to talk about today. And of course, in this video, I'm going to do lineups 3 ways like a professional chef. I'm going to hand build a lineup, lovingly curated using the data that I look at from sites like Pro Football Reference and Sports Info Solutions. And we're going to optimize some lineups using Fantasy Cruncher, of course, to find out what the math is going to drive us to the best plays. And of course, to accomplish that, we're also going to look at these stochastic projections and ownership projections, one of the best DFS sites out there. And last but not least, we're going to run some sims, all with the goal of finding out who are the best plays on Monday Night Football. Let's get into it. Let's start here. And right away, I have to give a shout out to our guy, Jonathan, in the chat, who led this one off saying, hit the like button, freeloading idiots, before the stream had even started. That's the kind of policemanship I like to see from the Splash Play community. The Squirt Squad always thriving here, and appreciate you guys being in the mix. Hi, silly Spags. Yes, hopefully I am in a silly mood here because I've not done a meeting today, and I might have even hit the old volcano. So it is what it is. We got to prep the way we prep here Monday morning. Let's get into the groove. Let's do it. Let's talk about this game here. So high implied total for Detroit. Obviously, David Montgomery still out with the rib issues for him. So that is something that is going to lead to a lot of opportunity for Jahmyr Gibbs, who basically took all the snaps at running back last time out. It was, I believe, 65 snaps or 55 snaps for Gibbs and 8 for Craig Reynolds in that game. So we do expect Gibbs once again to have a lot of opportunity in this spot. And despite the fact that I put a monitor on the thumbnail, usually I make the thumbnail kind of quickly off the top of my head, who's a player based on a quick glance of the data, who's going to stand out the most, who's the guy that I'm probably going to recommend over the course of the video, where I find some things by kind of going through this whole process. Amon-Ra still a great play. I think he's going to make it as his hand-built lineup as well. But the guy I'm going to put in captain is, in fact, going to be Jahmyr Gibbs. Let's look at his numbers here, but you can see what he did last time out. 11 attempts, 68 yards, 1 touchdown, 9 receptions for 10 targets. Don't know that he'll get that much pass game work in this spot. We're certainly against the Ravens, a little more of aggressive a run defense. A situation where you kind of had to pass the ball to get those pseudo run plays going. For this spot with Gibbs, I'm sure he'll get some targets. I've said before, I thought Gibbs' upside was to be kind of a bootleg Christian McCaffrey in terms of his usage and what it was at Bama. I think we kind of saw that last week, 9 for 10 for 58. Like, that is also a McCaffrey-esque line in terms of the pass game. So there's 2 ways he can get you there. The price tag, $12.9 at captain, $8,600 at any other position is going to look, at the other position, flex, is going to look okay. But Gibbs to me a very strong play, one that I'm going to have no issue with putting in a lot in flex and captain as well. I think he's a solid play. Gibbs, I think a guy that we've all been waiting for the breakout, especially if you were drafting him at very high draft capital in best ball. This spot to me for Gibbs is where we can explode. The reasons why on the year, the Raiders giving up a 0.03 EPA per rush. And again, if you're giving up any sort of positive expected points added metrics in the run game, that's just a sign that your defense is not good at defending the run at all, because run plays inherently minus EV. They're minus EPAs for the most part, because you're just kind of not as efficient in a pass game play for the most situations or most running backs. In this spot, though, Gibbs a good running back, a guy who can't avoid tackles. Hasn't done it as well as he can, but still a 30% avoided tackle rate on run plays this year, 13% in the pass game. I'd expect him to be closer to 30% in the pass game as well. Gibbs has a lot of juice. So going against a team that doesn't do a lot of things in the run game well, they also don't stuff the run at too high of a rate, 19%. They avoid tackles or miss tackles at a 16% rate. They only get tackles for loss on 10% of plays. These are all bottom tier metrics the Raiders are giving up in the run game. So that's why, to me, Gibbs is not a guy to fade today. He's not a guy to run away from. And if I could redo the thumbnail, I think I'd put Gibbs on it. Showdowns are for degenerates. That's why I'm here. There we go. Look, showdowns are the best, man. I think, last night was not a great one for me. Had more success in the main slate and the afternoon slate with some of the plays that we talked about on these videos, and the ones that I land on over the course of a weekend. But for showdowns, like just having that upside always, where 500K to first today, like I put in 30 entries, and I'm usually having one at least that's sniffing around the top 500, if not top 100 to top 25 lately. So I've been getting close, and I would say for you guys, I think if you put the work into showdowns, and in particular, finding those sort of soft spots with the ownership that we're going to see in a moment, and stochastics ownership projections, like Khalil Shakir, we talked about, hey, people might go to Hardy, people might go to Sherfield. Shakir is just at a weird price tag. And then there were some late reports that Andy Isabella might be getting work because a really incompetent, I presume, Buffalo beat reporter said Andy Isabella might get some run. And it's like, no, it's just Shakir. And that's the kind of thing that people miss on showdowns. And it's more about game theory, I think, than other things, where for a DFS slate, it's like, cool, did you play low-owned Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb? And great, bring Michael Gallup along. Oh, you got Hopkins too? Michael Gallup's 4 points don't even matter. Like, that's kind of main slate football compared to the chess game that is showdowns. trick or treat. Give me something good to bank. GM Squirt Squad. Need some UD Pick'em evaluation at the end. Got dusted this week. Oh, I mean, look, I don't know about the Pick'em game. That's one thing that we don't have in Pennsylvania, but we move forward nonetheless. But I'm sorry to anybody having tough runs in the Pick'em streets. Always got to go for that 55% probability mark for each of your legs. And I think that is something where people miss. Like, you could have your gut plays, have your instinct plays, but I still think there is a math way to win underdog pick'ems that people don't take enough, and you can using that data at probably.com. All right, so other plays we have to get in from the Lions. Again, high total here. Who's going to consolidate? I would want to play Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think, again, my thumbnail hyperbolic a little bit. I don't think he's a full cannot fade him in this spot. Do expect him to have the most potential here going against the Vegas defense that's basically net neutral and everything. 0 EPA allowed on dropbacks, 0 EPA allowed on passes. So they're basically just a moldable ball of clay that's going to do whatever the opposing offense does to him. Because Detroit's an efficient offense, I do expect they'll get there. I'm going to put Amon-Ra in here, but I think if you were not to play Amon-Ra, I think going with Gibbs at captain makes sense. Jameson Williams maybe takes a touchdown away. Josh Reynolds still getting a lot of reps. Reynolds safely ahead of Jameson Williams on the year. But Amon-Ra, we know, steady work each game. 19 targets last time out. You don't expect him to be pressing a duty quite that much, but still 19 targets is like a ceiling workload that not many guys in the league get. Only Puka Nacua, when Cooper Kupp isn't playing, is getting that kind of workload. So for Amon-Ra, I think he is very hard to fade. He's been questionable. Obviously, do expect him to go because he always goes with an illness, but still for him, I think with Amon-Ra, he's just the best play in this receiving core. But if you're not going to play him, then you expect his production to be so much lower. That means it's got to go somewhere, and that somewhere is probably Gibbs, Laporta, and then Reynolds / Jameson Williams in that order. Because of this lineup, I think the instinct would be to put in a Jared Goff, but I'm going to assume that Jared Goff is going to have a harder time getting to his 10-4 price tag. I'm going to try to consolidate the game overall a little bit more. So still trying to capture Lions production, but I'm going to go to Sam Laporta here as another pick in my hand build. Laporta in a pretty good matchup as well against tight ends on the year. The Raiders giving up 0.37 EPA per target. That is their weakest spot to defend on the year. 0.15 allowed to the slot per target. 0.06 EPA allowed out wide. So guys like Amon-Ra obviously can beat any matchup. He did well against the Ravens last week, so obviously you've seen that. Laporta, though, being in an easy matchup, I think is a benefit to him. So this is a spot where the volume's been there for him. Nobody really threatening him for snaps at this point. The red zone work, not the best for him. Just 0.6 red zone targets per game for him. It's not the most. Deep targets as well has been great with him, but only gets 0.3 of those per game. But Laporta, I think, he works as a captain too. But I think for my build, I'm going to go with him in the flex and stick with Gibbs as a captain. Goff would make sense in this lineup normally, but we're trying to get unique for a single entry, so we are going to omit the QB, omit the thing that sometimes people force in a guy like Goff as well. He is going to get there in a major way if his pass catchers get there, but let's say Gibbs soaks up 2 rushing touchdowns instead of receiving touchdowns. That's one way that Goff doesn't make the lineup while still giving enough PPR points to Amon-Ra and Sam Laporta. Laporta probably needs a touchdown to make the lineup too. Who else should we get in here? Devontae Adams, I feel like it's a good matchup for him, or a better matchup for him, I guess, than it is one for Josh Jacobs. On the year, the Lions D, negative 0.12 EPA per rush allowed to running backs, or to run plays rather, compared to a negative 0.03 EPA per dropback, negative 0.04 EPA per pass. Not a high catchable ball rate allowed at just 76%. That would actually be a pretty good mark defensively by the Raiders D. But Devontae, I think what we're going to see again here will be him bitching for touches, or him bitching to get that workload that he got in the beginning of the game last week. And then Brian Hoyer kind of fell apart. Things didn't work out. Garoppolo now, I think, has to show that he can not only be a good QB, but that he can be Devontae Adams' QB, because Adams got his most targets in a while there with 12 targets last time. Didn't do much with it. Dropped a touchdown in that game as well. But for Adams, Garoppolo still should be able to feed him the ball better than Brian Hoyer can. And I think we see kind of a run back of what we saw last week with the Bears, where Adams really got a lot of touches early. They're trying to show like, hey, you're an important part of this offense. Let's see how it goes. Then they went away from him, went Jacoby Myers way more. But I don't think Jimmy can get away with doing what he's been doing the last few weeks, which is really feeding Jacoby Myers more, peppering him with targets while Devontae Adams is out there basically running wind sprints. So I think Adams makes it in. I'm going to try to go this way with Adams. But I do think there's a pretty good case to be made. If you're not playing Adams, I'd put Jacoby Myers and save that money and try to get different right away. Who else can we put in? I would like to get to a Lions 5-1, but the cheap guys, I'm not sure if there's anybody that's going to really stand out. I didn't pull up the routes for the shitty guys before this video was done. So that's the one thing I didn't prepare. Actually did run the Sims and the Fantasy Cruncher before the show. So hopefully we'll make a little more time, a little more efficient there to get this video under 20 minutes perhaps. All right. Cheap guys running a lot of routes or playing a lot of snaps. Let's see. Hunter Renfrow is at 23 per game. Some of that might be vestigial because he has been getting a lap by Trey Tucker recently. Trey Tucker in the mix. It's not what we're talking about, Lenny. And also, that wasn't that great of a game. You got to know when to victory lap. And also, you got to come back when he has numerous duds in a row and is injured, Lenny. Lenny losing credibility with me by the week. You can't just show up for the good times of him having an okay day for a guy at his draft position. Trey Tucker at 600, kind of interesting, maybe. Hard to expect for me to have two Raiders pass catchers getting there, but Tucker does get some deep shots. Tucker decently involved, gets the occasional run play as well. Yeah, not a Trey Tucker spot necessarily, but I think in a 150 set, you're absolutely going to get some Trey Tucker. Turner, at least Lenny's consistent. Yes. Consistency in terms of just showing up anytime that McCaffrey, a number 3 overall pick, maybe number 2 in some leagues, puts up over 20 points. Whoop-de-fucking-do. Jesus Christ. 20 minutes, 90 more Spags in my life than that. That's what the Tuesday and Wednesday streams are for. The Showdown ones are just to try to get some views in, especially on Monday, because I know we get a lot of randoms who click on the Monday one more than Thursday for some reason. I feel like people not doing as much Thursday night football. All right. Let's see. Who could be a cheap guy? Because I got to get in one cheap guy here. Just don't believe in Renfro. Hooper's kind of lost the role to Mayer, not fully. Is it really Tucker? Tucker can do it in one play. Lenny does need to get squirted on. He does. He needs to get urinated on. Hooper, you really want Hooper? What was Hooper's snap count last week compared to Mayer? Mayer was at 46. Hooper was at 38. So going the wrong way. Actually, no, Hooper's at 22. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong row. Hooper's at 22. That's pretty tough, man. That's a pretty big jump there. You're talking about almost 50% difference in the snap count. But he can get there on one touchdown. Don't like Tucker. I prefer Tucker. I guess let's think about Hooper a little bit more. This matchup, not a bad one for tight ends. Hooper hasn't gotten a red zone target. I just don't think it could be Hooper. Of course he's gonna fucking go off now because that's always how it goes. We got to come off Adams. I think I believe in Adams a lot. Let's save some money and go to Jacoby Myers instead. That leaves us 51-50. It's a little more appealing. I think Lions D can make the lineup. The Lions don't kick a lot of field goals. If they get into 4th and short, you know they're going to go for it, which does make it a little bit hard on Riley Patterson. So if you're not, because I don't think we can make a bet on Gibbs and Patterson, because a bet on Gibbs probably says that Gibbs is getting rushing touchdowns, which basically means that they're like going for it, keeping the drives alive, or just Gibbs is getting in. Whereas Riley Patterson kicking field goals means that drives are probably stalling out around the 40 or at least the 30. And you're talking like 3rd and long on the 30. That's where they'll kick it on 4th down. I'm going to go Lions D here. Lions D getting a takeaway from Garoppolo seems possible. A Jacobs fumble seems possible. Jacobs a good play too, man. Is Jacobs a better play than Myers in this build? Like just fade the pass game entirely. Lions D. I mean, they're just better against the run, but they can just give up an easy touchdown to Jacobs, and maybe that's their whole day. It's like one touchdown to Jacobs and a couple field goals. All right, let's see what we can do here. Let's see what Carlson's at. Carlson's 4,200. Is this unique enough? Leaving 900 on the table is close to being unique. We're playing a defense, a 4-2 build. Is Sun God that questionable? DK Sportsbooks don't have line wide receivers, receptions, or receiving yards up. It's just the illness part of it being late, I think, is a concern with him. Illnesses, guys normally play through. Mahomes played through one. I guess maybe he shouldn't have based on how poorly that game went for the Chiefs yesterday. But guys usually would play through an illness, so I wouldn't expect it. But, obviously, guys, own vulnerabilities to things going to be their own, so I can't say that. Jacobs is no CMC. That's true. All right. I think I'm going to settle on this one because, okay, so the logic is that the Lions get a takeaway at some point. They're keeping things pinned for the most part. Jacobs is able to get there, but they're probably sacking Jimmy a lot. Detroit defense, 24% pressure rate, not the greatest. And Jimmy G doesn't get a ton of pressure. This is 29% rate, which is actually kind of low. Jimmy G gets rid of that ball fast enough. I don't know if Lions D can get there. Let's see if we could save more money coming off of Lions D. Obviously, a takeaway they can do, but Jimmy's not turning it over at that high of a rate. 5% interception rate, actually, is not great for Jimmy. But he's not taking enough sacks. That's the thing that I feel like is a little bit tough for a defense, because a lot of times the defense, the way they make it in a showdown is just getting a ton of sacks. And basically, that's enough to get you close to that 10-point mark when you give away a few touchdowns or whatever. Let's go Michael Mayer here. I think the usage is still good. Lions D, the ceiling is probably, unless they score a touchdown and they get a couple sacks, maybe a pick or two. Ceiling is still around 10 points. Mayer can get us 10. So Mayer will be our leverage against Jacoby Myers and Davante Adams. Carlson will be the guy who kicks in some field goals. I think there's probably something running a little bit weird with Carlson and Jacobs that worries me, because it does feel like if Jacobs is scoring touchdowns, we're basically saying that because Jacobs has to score one touchdown at least to make this lineup, Carlson's probably got to make 3 field goals. Like, are the Raiders going to be on their own side of the field, or on the Lions side of the field 5 times in this game and convert them all? I guess that's the bet we got to make here. So a 3-3, I think probably more contrarian than it normally will be. This will be my final team here. We're going to go with Jahmyr Gibbs at captain. We'll see it loading on the screen now. Carlson, Josh Jacobs, Sam Laporta, Michael Mayer, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra, though, as we talked about, the thumbnail says one tail. I wish I were a little more accurate with how I'm feeling about it right now. Amon-Ra still a good play, still the best PPR play, I think. But with the illness, with the ways you can get different, I think that you could maybe talk me into not playing as much Amon-Ra as I thought I would when I started the day. Top projected players: Amon-Ra, number 1, not a surprise. Jared Goff, number 2, also not a surprise. These guys will probably come up in almost every lineup in that Fantasy Cruncher Crunch that we're going to see in a moment. Jahmyr Gibbs at number 3, Davante Adams, number 4, Josh Jacobs, number 5. So the projections you can see coming down quite a bit for these guys with where they have been so far this year. Obviously, a low total game with the Raiders, 19.5 implied points. That makes some amount of sense. But overall, Jacobs and Adams, not as in play as they might normally be, which kind of makes them more in play if you're thinking about the game theory of a tournament. And if you do heavy up on these guys where you're just playing Adams and Jacobs, one of them at captain, you're playing a Raiders positive outcome here, I don't think it's the best one. Like, I really think that the Raiders are going to have some struggles defending Jahmyr Gibbs. Same thing with Amon-Ra. Same thing with Jameson Williams deep. I think there's going to be some things they struggle with on those kind of concepts. But Gibbs in particular, I think, is going to give him a lot of trouble. That I'd have a hard time building a 5-1 Raiders build, but the uniqueness of it's the main thing. In Showdown, you just want to get unique combos. Top value plays on the slate, guys. It'll probably come up with an optimizer. Brock Wright, $200. Not a guy that I'd be going to. He got how many snaps last week? Brock Wright, I got to spell it correctly. Brock Wright had 26 snaps last week compared to 54 for Laporta. Yeah, Brock Wright, not an unreasonable play. Not one I definitely would want to go out of my way for. We'll see what the optimizer does. Amir Abdullah, Antoine Green, Trey Tucker, good value as well. DeAndre Carter, these are your value plays. And Austin Hooper, kind of forgotten behind at $800. And guys, still getting meaningful work as we showed a little bit earlier. Carlson's an actual game time decision from what I've read on Twitter. All right, we'll see then. Do they have the other kicker in there? I presume they have somebody else, but who would be the other kicker? Not a projection here yet. But yeah, definitely something to watch here. Of course, I'm doing this video right now. It's 11:19 a.m., so keep an eye on this. As I always talk about as well, make sure to watch the ETR show later today with Cody Main, Gary Hartman. Try to watch the Stochastic one they do later today if you keep that on where you're building lineups for live before lock. Run Pure does a good one as well. I try to encourage you guys, like for Showdowns, like I'll obviously give you my takes and I'll give you the best takes I can, but I think it's important to kind of get the picture of the overall ecosystem. So they'll have better information for that if you listen to shows later in the day. Ownership projections. Top owned guys, 59% for Amon-Ra St. Brown across everything. 59. So same ownership for Amon-Ra and Jahmyr Gibbs expected at the overall positions here. A little bit more for Gibbs at captain. So I went with the chalk captain. I did not think Gibbs would be a chalk captain, but I guess I am a donkey for the day. Jared Goff, 57.9% projected ownership from Stochastic, 11% at captain. Davante Adams, Josh Jacobs, not that far behind. Jacobs, a little bit lesser owned at captain, but higher owned overall. Adams, almost at 10% at captain, but a little bit lower owned in the flex. So that makes some amount of sense there. Jacoby Myers, I think a good captain play to go to. Again, just Jimmy has really looked at Davante Adams as kind of a secondary piece to Jacoby Myers, which is not what you want Davante Adams to be. Myers has been his first look a lot more than you would think. That has been something that I think they have to change just to keep Davante happy. But it is something that's kind of coming to a head right now. Let's see. They signed some kicker named McCourt from the practice squad. So there we go. So watch out for that. I guess hopefully that guy will be eligible in the field. I did not see him based on the DraftKings lineup that we built. And hey, Spags, you were right about AJ Brown. Your goal of this. Thank you. I appreciate that, Chase. And look, not going to hit them all. I have to warn you guys about that, but I'm always glad to see we are running hot with some of the guys we talk about here. And AJ Brown did well for me. He and CeeDee Lamb were some lineups that really helped bubble up for me yesterday. But CeeDee is not a guy I'd prioritize, but he got there. Low owned guys that you can look at. And then just for the captain ownership, if we want to sort that, you can see it sorted by captain ownership. Overall, though, guys, some low-owned guys you can go to. Brock Wright, who we talked about. Again, flimsy $200 play. Probably like a Stone Smart last night, who got me a little bit on the Sunday Night Football, which bummed me out. Stone Smart had played a lot of snaps the week before. Kind of hoped that he maybe was going to pull ahead of Parham in some packages. That wasn't the case. Brock Wright, we know what the role is. It's not Sam Laporta, but he maybe gets some goal line work. So Brock Wright, he's a projection play. Austin Hooper, not too highly owned. Amir Abdullah does get in those 3rd and long plays. Definitely a live pivot point to Josh Jacobs, but he's only going to get a handful of snaps. Abdullah last week played, I got to put this just on my main sheet. Abdullah played just 10 snaps last week, but he can get you 2 catches and maybe a touchdown in those 10 snaps. So I wouldn't hate Amir Abdullah. Antoine Green, DeAndre Carter, all these guys low owned. And then the slightly higher owned guys, Khalif Raymond, Michael Mayer under 20% is not bad. Actually, wouldn't hate him as a captain play. It's a pretty flimsy one, but I don't think it's the most insane one ever. And Carlson, that Q tag on him if he does go. He's already projected to be low owned, so a Carlson play could be pretty good here. Might actually be a little bit under owned compared to the 16% he's projected for right now. How can we fade Michael Mayer on New Year's Eve or Halloween Eve? On New Year's Eve, I guess you could fade him. On Halloween Eve, you cannot. I did see that I think Underdog had like a fun Michael Mayer as Michael Meyer. Michael Myers little thing there. So graphic, I think, on their draft that they're doing for Monday Night Football. So cute branding for him. And I guess it would be on brand. One thing I didn't mention, by the way, this is officially, guys, 1 year ago is when I had my last really big noteworthy showdown win where I picked up $25K on a Browns-Bengals slate. So I'm due. This is it. This is my time. Halloween is when I really rise above the fray for showdown content. So let's hope it hits tonight. I'm going to be fucking stoked, but also really confused if I have a big win tonight and it's like, oh, I guess I'm just good only on Halloween day. That's how it works. All right, top projected lineups here according to Fantasy Cruncher. And of course, what I did before the show was I just uploaded these stochastic projections in, and I didn't look. I just kind of like literally just glazed over and was like, all right, we'll explore it live on the show. But wanted to prepare in advance to try to shorten the video up. And of course, I rambled for way too long in all the other segments here. Josh Jacobs is going to be in 76% of lineups according to just the pure math here of the projections. Not in every lineup, though. Jared Goff, 68% of lineups, and not in every lineup at captain. So, so nobody is in 100% of lineups besides Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs does make it to 64% as a flex, 36% at captain. Amon-Ra, I cannot see this number. Is there some way to move this? No, you actually, oh, there we go. Okay, good. That worked. I didn't know that was a thing. Amon-Ra, 32% at captain and 60%. So yeah, not quite in every one. So the only guy who's in every single lineup is Jahmyr Gibbs. That means that he is a guy that if you fade him, you are going to get away largely from a lot of people building off of just projection. So that is one thing I have to note. Still love Jahmyr Gibbs, but I think now this is a reason to think twice about playing him in every single lineup just because of the fact he's going to very easily get into every single lineup. Let's see. Defenses coming up a little bit for the Lions, but not too much. Kickers, both of them coming up. A lot more Riley Patterson, though, which I think it's a mistake. Riley Patterson, 4,800. Like, he can certainly kick field goals, but you basically have to build your lineup that this team stalls out in the red zone because the Lions are not the team that's just going to let Riley Patterson kick a lot of field goals. Like, if it's 4th and 1, they're going to go for it. If it's 4th and 2, they're probably going to go for it. If it's anything short of like 4th and 4, I think they're probably going to go for it. So I would watch Riley Patterson ownership. I think that's going to be one of the 3 takeaways I will hit on coming up in a little bit. Let's see. Other things to observe here, team stack wise. So, wow. So 16 out of 25 of these teams built are 4-2s for Lions. So you're not getting as many Lions onslaughts, but 4-2s definitely well represented. 4-mans for the Raiders also coming up a little bit. A good amount of 3-mans, but it does seem like the field going to be more 3-man, more 4-man. So going to an onslaught might be a good move tonight. I do think a Lions onslaught is live. And if you want to flip the script for the underdog, it's always a way to get unique. Obviously, if you were to play 5 Raiders and 1 Lion, never going to say don't do that. I think especially if you are playing a handful of entries, you're going to lose that money most likely. But if you hit, like, you're going to win the most money. So 5 wins for the Raiders, not a chance we're going to come up very often. I think that's one way to do it. What is your Halloween costume, Spags? I think I'm just going to be an M&M with Luca, I believe is what we're doing. And then Alex is going to be the sexy M&M, and I'm going to be the red M&M, and I'm going to be the yellow, and Luca's going to be the red because red's the short one. So it was not my choice. I really don't give a fuck. I have too much work to do these days to worry about Halloween, but we will do it for the sake of photos. And I guess for trick-or-treaters, I don't know. I'm sure they need that. Lions onslaught, playing Lions D. I think Lions D is fine. Like, I don't think they're a priority play to me. They're just so expensive, and players just keep forcing in defenses over and over again. Like, for For me, the Lions D at 5K, like I would rather find some cheaper guys than that. Like who can we get to that can realistically beat the Lions D? I know we talked about a few of them, but like both sides here where like Carlson can beat Lions D, Patterson can beat Lions D, Mayer can beat Lions D, Raiders D can beat Lions D. Just takes Jared Goff fucking up big on one play. They could beat it. Khalif Raymond can beat Lions D. Zamir White, no. Hunter Renfrow, probably not. Hooper, a touchdown, a couple catches, he can do it. Trey Tucker, one big play can beat Lions D. There's just too many guys that can beat Lions D at that salary, and I think that's like the main thing that makes it tough. But in a 5-1 build, like yes, because you're basically saying that this team on the other side is not going to score that many points, and if they do, it's sort of concentrated. So Lions D is okay, but like they're not going to be a priority play for me. They'll be one that I'll get kind of wherever it makes sense. Dad's bod equals peanut M&M. It's just that yellow's taller, I think, primarily. If Alex is going to be the green M&M because she's the sexy one. But apparently the green M&M now is a lesbian lover with the brown M&M is what Alex is telling me because she was looking up the costumes. And apparently there's this whole world of M&M canon now that fits the modern perception of things. So yeah, green M&M, the sexy one, but green M&M also a lesbian. So guess we're boxed out there. No pun intended. The simmed lineups here. We're not through the sim process live. Did them before the show. So let's see what the top 150 gives us. Of course, if you want to play these straight away, you can. The data moves around over the course of a day. Guys being rolled in, guys being rolled out. Vegas totals moving and all of that. So make sure to do that. Actually, before we get in the sims, I should do this quickly. Please, guys, subscribe down below. Hit the like button. Leave a comment. Splash Play perpetually on the march to 3K subs. And we're going to hit it at some point before the end of this calendar year. So please subscribe down below. New shows Monday to Friday at 11 a.m. Always talking fantasy football all year round here on Splash Play. That is just what we do. That is what I do. That is what I love. So come and join me on that journey here. All right, top exposures on this 150 set. So Jared Goff everywhere in the flex. That is coming up a lot. So Jared Goff, faded him in my single entry. I'm comfortable not getting Jared Goff. Like I certainly think if you have a Monra at captain, if you went Jameson Williams at captain and a Monra, if you're playing multiple pass catchers, you can certainly get to Jared Goff. But I think there is a world where Jahmyr Gibbs takes enough off the table as a rusher that you can get away with not playing Jared Goff. Jared Goff also can turn it over. Jared Goff not likely to rush for a touchdown himself. These are all things for Goff that I do think for him. There's a lot of ownership, man, and I wouldn't straight fade him, but if you take him out of the player pool, you are chopping off a lot of potential people here, both at captain and at flex. Lesbian candy. Now that is sexy. Yes, indeed. Binary M&M now. Oh, yeah, that's true. It's unfortunately they have genders and they have backstories. I don't know what to tell you. Monra coming up in the flex a lot. Jahmyr Gibbs coming up the flex a lot. No surprises there. Monra going to be our highest owned captain. It looks like 25% ownership going to him. Jahmyr Gibbs on the Sims, 18% ownership going to captain. So they are projecting to go a little bit above the field there, even though he is the chalk captain. Both guys here, Monra and Gibbs, still good captains. Though because of their high ownership, I guess you're not getting quite as much. Jared Goff coming up a good amount. I have no issue with that, even though I think in some respects, Goff makes more sense as captain because you could really load up on pass catchers and see that he has an outlier day where maybe he sneaks a touchdown in. In the flex, I don't know. I'm a little more willing to get away from at the flex. But a captain, I think it makes sense, especially if you are like onslaughting or you got to make sure to have at least 2 pass catchers with them if you are playing Goff at captain. Laporta coming in low at captain, but still some representation. And then less Jacobs and Adams at captain. Surprised by that because I would think that's a way to get leverage. But they're such a big underdog. I guess that kind of makes sense. And then the highest leverage overall that I would be getting with these Sims, Jared Goff at 23%, Brock Wright, a lot of him, 20% exposure, wanting to get 13% more than the field of him. Amon-Ra coming in more. Hunter Renfrow. What was Renfrow snaps at last week? Because I thought he was like kind of out of the mix mostly. 24 snaps. He was out of the mix the week before at 7 snaps the prior week, 24 this week. And then compared to Trey Tucker, Trey Tucker had 32. So Trey Tucker definitely had of Renfrow in terms of the snap share. Obviously, Renfrow probably a better target earner, but just something to keep in mind there if you end up with a lot of Renfrow. If St. Brown is out, Goff at captain because he could spread it around more. I think that's fair. I would probably be more inclined to take a shot at a Josh Reynolds or a Jameson Williams at that point, even Laporta. I would still try to consolidate the targets, but I agree that Goff could spread it out more. Like I think that's one of those where you kind of play a choose your own adventure and try to play both angles. Any interesting lineups here? Let's see for fun. It's not a play I'm advocating for, but I do think it is one that is worth taking a look at. So Jameson Williams snaps keep coming out. He's not a good player. He hasn't been good at anything yet. But man, he's going to be low owned at captain, and he can break it with theoretically 1 or 2 big plays that I don't know if they're even there for him in this offense, but they can be there theoretically. Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Brock Wright, Devontae Adams, Jared Goff, Jimmy Garoppolo. So basically, Jameson Williams, a captain, allows you to get in some good guys as long as you also take the cheap Brock Wright along with him. I don't know that I love Brock Wright in those kind of builds. Antoine Green probably makes more sense if Amon-Ra St. Brown goes out. I don't see that Antoine Green can really get there with the current outlay of those roles. And all these two, by the way, negative ROI, but for showdowns, I wouldn't say ignore it, but as long as it has a win percentage, as long as it has a top 10 percentage, I'm still willing to play the lineups that are not like that, don't have a high ROI, because you just want to be able to get unique, and people don't want to play negative ROI lineups. Obviously, both, they're not going to land on them naturally, and they're not going to play them from a sim. So it's something to keep in mind there. Who else? Any other unique captains you guys want to see? I'm happy to look it up, but I'm not really sure. Josh Reynolds, I guess, would be a unique captain. Maybe you could tell yourself a tale where he gets there as captain because Amon-Ra's sick, not playing the full capability. What's the highest ROI one here? 49.5 Sal, you're probably getting duped. I'd be more inclined for this one. Josh Reynolds, Amon-Ra, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jacoby Myers, Jared Goff, Trey Tucker. Again, Trey Tucker playing snaps. Get there with one deep ball. If Trey Tucker and Jacoby Myers get there, they pull from Devontae Adams. Same thing, obviously, for Jacobs. They pull from everybody if they both get there. So those kind of builds make sense. Yeah. So if I eat a green M&M, am I being an oppressive male? Yeah. So, I mean, you have to get consent from your M&Ms before you eat them. Wonder if Renfro snaps go way up if the Raiders are trying to shop him and put out good film for trade deadline. I don't think so. It's not like, because like people could see what they've seen from Hunter Renfro. Nothing's changed over this year. It's just a lack of usage for him. So I don't think it's one of those things where you have to go out there. Like, they know he's healthy. If somebody wants to trade for him, they will. They probably won't, though, because his contract is pretty gross. So it would have to be somebody like, I don't know, like the Bills, and they just had a great game for Shakir. So I probably don't think they would. Would I do 5-1 Detroit with White as captain? White as captain. Wait, what? White? Hold on. Who are we talking about as White? I'm confused as to Zamir White as captain? No chance. That's how far from my brain that was. That's a terrible play. No. You're gonna get dusted. If you play like a captain that gives you 10 points, you have no chance. You have to have your captain give you at least 20. And Zamir White, it would have to be a blowout that puts up 50 points by halftime. And if it's a blowout that puts up 50 points by halftime, you probably had Amon-Ra St. Brown put up 200 yards, or Jahmyr Gibbs score 3 touchdowns. I'm not trying to be rude or anything. I just was like, what the fuck are you talking about? So that's why. But no, don't do that. Don't do that. That's a bad play. It's a really bad play. You wanted unique, I gave it to you. Too unique. You don't have to be that unique to win a showdown. And that's something that I think is pretty tough. You just have to kind of balance it out where, like, if you have a chalky build, make sure you're saving on salary. Make sure you're getting, 1 or 2 lower owned guys in the mix. If you have a more unique captain, then maybe you only need 1 lever, like saving a little bit on salary, or just, kind of picking 1 unique guy. But that's sort of how that goes. Like, don't galaxy brain showdowns too much, because that's how you fucking hemorrhage money. The only way to galaxy brain is just play like good 5-1s. Like, that's the best, low probability play you can make in showdowns. It still has actual chance of hitting. All right, so 3 takeaways to hit on here. This is gonna be an interesting one. My first takeaway is gonna be, I don't think Amon-Ra St. Brown is unfadable. I'm not going to change the thumbnail, but to reward the people that actually watch the video, I actually don't think he's unfadable. I think you could talk yourself in a couple different ways that he can be faded. Obviously, watch his status heading up to lock. If he does somehow get ruled out, I think he'll be a go. He's a gamer, but it is an illness. Who knows how bad the illness is? Apparently, the Saints all had diarrhea, besides Alvin Kamara, who's mentioned that in a press conference. So, your mileage may vary, but I do think Amon-Ra St. Brown being out there, he's just too good of a player. I find it hard to believe if he's going, he's not worth it. So I still will be willing to play more than not. But you could definitely find ways to get different there. Number 2 for me would be, I actually think that Jahmyr Gibbs is kind of unfadable. I think Jahmyr Gibbs gets there in every build. He's really chalky. He's going to be chalky at captain too. So maybe don't play him at captain as much as I thought. Obviously put him in my hand build here. 15% ownership for a running back at captain's tough, but I think this is the upside for him. I think it's the matchup. Really good red zone matchup in the run game. Really good, he should be able to do everything he wants in this game. Maybe a tougher time catching passes out of the backfield. But besides that, I think this is the Gibbs smash spot. Number 3, in terms of my takeaways here to build a unique lineup. We know the obvious ones. I'll just say them again. Build up 5-1s from the underdog team. That's always going to be unique. Playing 2 defenses and kicker is going to be unique, but less, minus EV. Leaving salary on the table always going to make you unique. Obviously, those are kind of the obvious things here, as I struggle to find what a true number 3 would be. I think for me on the slate, Number 3 is going to be being willing to walk away from Jared Goff. Like, Jared Goff makes a lot of sense. He comes up in every lineup, but he doesn't run enough. He only runs 2.3 times per game, 1.4 of which is a red zone run. So he has a shot to bury you with a rushing touchdown. But if he just creates PPR value and we see Gibbs get in the end zone, that's where Goff doesn't get there. So in lineups where you have Gibbs and Riley Patterson, I think in particular, that's where Goff can really easily not make that lineup. So that's what I would try to build. I would personally try to build less Goff-heavy lineups. I'll still get some, so that's not going to be me. Like, if you see my exposures after and go like, well, you still played Goff. I'm still going to play some, but I think that's the best stand you can make relative to what the ownership is going to be, because nothing else stands out as being too highly owned, and Goff came up everywhere. And I think there are ways that we can still see a good Lions production here without seeing Goff actually get there in a meaningful way. But there we go, guys. That is it. Thanks for the show, Spags. Appreciate you guys being here as always. Of course, before you go, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, leave a comment if you're watching after the fact. Happy to look up any data for you. I always reply to every comment, so please leave a comment down below as well. Follow me at Chris Spags. Follow this show at Splash Play Pod. And come back tomorrow. Best ball review show. Will it be good things for me, or will I be taking my lumps? We'll find out tomorrow at 11 a.m. Appreciate all you guys for being here. Of course, if I don't take this down today, I hope you do. I will see you guys again soon. Enjoy your days. Good luck. Bye.